Welcome to the Let's Talk Paralegal podcast, where the legal industry gets real. I'm your host, Etta Rosa, legal consultant, speaker, and founder of Etta Rosa LLC and the Limitless Paralegal Academy. This isn't your stuffy legal studies school lecture. We're talking mindset, money, modern workflows, and how to build a career and a life you don't need a vacation from. Let's cut the fluff, raise the bar, and change the game one conversation at a time. If you like what you hear, feel free to share and send us your feedback. Now let's talk paralegal. Today's guest is proof that mindset isn't just personal, it's political. Maaria Mozaffar is an attorney, a mediator, a legislative drafter, and an equity champion who has been doing the work long before the buzzwords. But what makes her truly special is her belief in community collaboration. That real change doesn't happen in silos or courtrooms alone. It happens when we build with people, not just for them. In this episode, we talk about the mindset it takes to lead, the humility required to listen, and the power of partnerships between legal professionals and the communities they serve. If you've ever felt called to create change but didn't know where to start, this is your blueprint. Listen in for more. Welcome to the Let's Talk Paralegal podcast. My name is Etta, and today I have Maaria. I almost mispronounce her name so many times, and I'm sure I can definitely be a victim to that as well with my name. So everybody, it is what it is. She and I, we have been talking for a while now. We've been trying to, get on this recording. So I'm super excited that it happened and that we were able to communicate and that she was brought into my inbox, literally. So you can thank your assistant for that because, without her, I wouldn't have known about your amazing trajectory and kind of your journey to where you are today. And I love that you're more of an advocate, community-centered lawyer. We need more of you like that out there, especially now in the new narratives, like we were briefly speaking about prior to the recording. But I don't want to go on and on and on. So how about Maaria? How about you introduce yourself and give us a little trailer on who you are and really what led you to this moment?
Thank you. And you got something in your inbox because conversations that bring value to the world are the key things that we want to do, and we want to work with people that are bringing value. So thank you, Eda, for bringing value to the world. So I am a lawyer. I'm a civil rights attorney, you could call me a legislative attorney as well, because I've been writing legislations for the last 15 years. So I know the ins and outs of legislative drafting and passing and creating campaigns around them. And I'm also a writer and a mediator, and a mother and a wife. And so the whole aspect of me is interconnected. You can't separate one from the other. And to speak about community collaboration and why it's so important, I think a lot of individuals, when they're watching the news, really don't know how to respond, but they have very strong opinions on certain things, no matter what side of the aisle you're on or whatever your opinion is. And a lot of times you really don't know how to respond and how you can have impact. And I think it's critical to understand that there are communities and potential for communities around you that may agree with you, and they're looking for people, and they're looking for people to talk things through, to kind of not pass the buck and take some tasks on to be able to change circumstances around them. And so it's very critical for lawyers that are engaged in this space, that are trying to bring transformative change or things that other people don't feel is possible. You have to engage with the community, you have to collaborate, you have to talk to people around you. And you always learn so much, whether you're a lawyer or not. There's so much expertise by just living in the world. And I take on that very seriously, that you don't need to be an expert to bring transforming change, transformational change, right? You just have to have the will, and that's what you actually realize when you collaborate with community, because people living their lives, I mean, there are circumstances that they have, obstacles that they have, financial hardships, health hardships, family dynamics, losses in their life. These are life lessons that they bring to the table, and they bring empathy, and they bring vision, and they bring passion to be able to change things. And tapping into all of that is when you can actually choose a direction of how you can have impact and transform change. And you can't do this work in a silo, is what I mean. You can't be in an ivory tower sitting in your office. You got to be talking to people, learning people, humbling yourself. You got to do all of it.
I agree. And I agree with all the statements you just said, but there were a few that I want to kind of roll back on. And
Yes.
I believe that health is an underrated benefit that we have, and I learned this the hard way 10 years ago when I lost my father. And so,
Mm,
it was something where I didn't think, we don't put it as a priority. So I was talking to the psychologist when I was researching for my new book that's coming out this year as well. And she was
mm,
telling me that she does this exercise, and I think this will be beneficial for the audience as well, because we're talking
mm,
about how everything can be overwhelming and our strong opinions. And when what she does with her clients, and I thought was very interesting, we're actually now implementing it with her permission with our team building and our staff training with the consulting firm. It's a exercise where it's very simple. You just ask your audience or your team members or whomever it is that you are working with or speaking to. And it's basically a list of priorities in your life. And what she found over the
okay.
years, she's been doing this for like 15, 20 years. And what she found over the years was nobody puts themselves on that list. And
Mm-hmm.
so, we don't prioritize ourselves. We should be number one. We should fill our cup before we can fill others. And unfortunately, that we miss the mark on that, right? We talk about ourselves as labels of society, like you were saying in your kind of like meshes all together. These are parts of
Yeah.
you, but this is not you. You yourself are
Yep.
a very ambitious, motivated, smart, bold person, and that's who you are at your core. The rest is just additional, right? Is what society
Mm-hmm.
sees from the
Mm-hmm.
outside in. And so, I believe that it's really easy to go down the rabbit hole and spiral, with the news is one of many reasons I don't even listen to the news. I'm
Mm-hmm.
on these email lists where it tells me about what new laws are coming, what executive
Okay.
orders have been signed. Obviously, I want to know what's
Okay.
happening in my community and I want to know what's
Yeah.
happening
Yeah.
in politics because obviously anything that happens in politics is going to affect us some way, shape, or form. And so I need to know, right? And so I am
Mm,
on those serve lists and everything else to keep myself up to date as to what's happening. Obviously, I need to know it because it's my job. So I have to
yeah.
know that as well. But I don't listen to the media. I don't listen to the interpretation portion of it, right? Because it's all
Mm-hmm.
interpretation and it's all
Mm-hmm.
about the opinion and who's paying that network to say what, where, when. And so unfortunately, I found myself early this year, especially after January 6th, where the world
Mm-hmm.
changed. And I found myself in this predicament where I was getting these ads and, these things in my algorithm that I wasn't used to because it wasn't something in my radar. I like to have psychology today, and I like to see therapists and mindset, and I like to talk, I like to see, legal professionals getting into different things. And, that's usually my algorithm, just learning, consuming
Mm-hmm.
educational content. And so when this was coming up, I'm not sure what happened. I literally erased my whole algorithm because I found myself with such anxiety that was super
Oh,
unnecessary.
yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
I found myself in this like, why am I so anxious? Why can't I sleep? What's going on? And I was, as I'm doing this process and walking this journey, I realized that fear has a lot to do with it, but fear is a reaction. It's not really an emotion, right? It's like a misconception where we react to it with fear, but it's not an emotion itself. It's something that we learn, right? We're not afraid of anything other than to protect ourselves. That's our nature, right? We have to protect ourselves and we have to eat. So, if those two things are compromised, that's really where the real, survival mode comes in. It should. So, anyway, what
Mm-hmm.
I liked about that was that you talked about health hardships. You also talked about yourself in when we don't see a community, we can create it, which is another thing that we miss the mark on, right? We miss the mark
100%.
on creating a community that you don't see, which is really, really timely because we just launched the Limitless Paralegal Academy because I saw a
Amazing.
community that wasn't represented. And so we created this, community for these paralegals that are in interim, that are trying to pivot, that are trying to grow, yet the traditional resources out there are not helping because they don't talk about topics about how to provide proper customer service, how to be a partner to the attorney, how to change your mindset to a more entrepreneurial versus an employee mindset, and all these
Mm-hmm.
things that I had nowhere to go when I was there 7 years ago. And so I went in, I had a hard look at myself. I took 3 years to create this thing, but it happened. And creating these communities is what's really what drives our communities, right? We are
Mm-hmm.
community. We as legal professionals, that's who we literally serve. We serve our
Mm-hmm.
community. We are here for them. We are here to
Mm-hmm.
protect their rights, whatever those rights may look like at that moment. And we're here
Mm-hmm.
to defend them to the utmost potential. And if we cannot
100%.
do any of that unless we invest in ourselves, our skills, our mindset, and our growth in general. And another
Mm-hmm.
thing that I learned this weekend was that those intersect. Like you were saying, your personal and your professional do go hand in hand. I used to have this
Yeah.
boss 15 years ago where he would say, hang, leave your personal life behind. Well, you can't do that. There's no off switch
No.
to grief
No,
or
there's no.
hardship.
No, no, no. There's no offset switch. And I think one feeds the other. And I think that, to kind of, you said a lot of great things. And I think one thing that we need to understand that it's a very linear relationship. It's like if you want to serve the community, you want to be good at anything that you do, as an attorney, you have to be able to show up in that space fully present and fully committed to being the best that you can be. That doesn't mean knowing everything because, as you know, because you work with lawyers and paralegals, everything can be found in a book, right? And found on different services that provide you the most updated cases. So, it's not knowing everything, it's being able to strategize and be in the mindset. And that mindset has to be one that allows you to see doors open. That's so
Mm,
critical, right? So when you're coming to serve somebody, you have to be like, there's got to be a way out of here. Like, we got to figure this out. There's another way to look at this, right? And for that, you have to be in a positive space. That doesn't mean you have to be in a lollipops and unicorns. You have to be in a space that believes that there is fairness, that there is justice. I'm a person of faith, so I'm a person of faith. So I do believe in a creator, and so you have to understand that there are balances that, that exist, and that there should be equity and fairness. And you know, it's not just for lawyers, any profession, anybody in a community. Once you decide that you want to have that kind of task, um, be on your plate, then you make a commitment to be present and be able to strategize with a clear mind. But like you said, you spoke about the loss of your father. I lost my father as well. And it was an interesting transition when I lost my father, because if I may say, when you lose a loved one, when you wake up the next morning, it's actually the worst. I think it's the worst. You feel like how is the day continuing without this person in the world? Are you guys all nuts? Like, you understand this person just left, right? So,
yeah.
but what you realize with that too is that we come and go. People here and they come and go. And it's so important, especially for your audience that's listening here, is that what are you doing and what are you intentionally putting out there with your hearts, your mind, and your sweat and your tears and your talent? What are you putting out there? Because at one point you're going to leave. I'm sorry, that is the reality. You are going to leave.
Right.
And so you have to decide, if you're able to speak, have you utilized your speech? If you're able to critically analyze, have you critically analyzed? If you're able to defend somebody else when they can't speak for themselves, have you done that? You know?
Yeah.
Have you done everything that you can do to make things a little bit easier and better? And we all have this task, and we all have to take it on, because you cannot rely on any form of government or political party or the right person to solve all of that for you, unless you are willing to be a participant
Mm.
in solving the problems.
Hey legal pros, are you ready to stop playing small? The Limitless Paralegal Academy is officially open, offering powerhouse courses, real-world tools, and expert-led training to help you build the career and life you actually want. We're not stopping there. The Limitless Paralegal Tour is hitting the road. We're bringing the mindset shifts, career strategies, and community straight to your city with epic speakers, actionable sessions, and zero boring PowerPoints. This isn't your average CLE. This is your legal career reimagined. Join the Academy, meet us on tour, become the legal pro everyone remembers. Visit limitlessparalegalacademy.com to enroll and grab your ticket now. Be bold, be brilliant, but most importantly, be limitless. I love that. Willing participant. That is another one that we struggle with, right? I feel like as born in this country, the United States, I feel like there's a lot of privileges that we take for granted, current company included. I didn't realize how the struggle was, right, for others. And the more I travel, the more I learn about other cultures, other religions, other languages, I start realizing that, there life comes with certain privileges at some point, and whether they're big, small to you, they're a lot to others, right? So I'll use a very simple example. My son and I, he just turned 7, and we were having this conversation about how my husband's in this triathlon training kind of thing. He's about to go do a half marathon. And so, daddy wakes up super early and is training, and, that's his focus right now on his health and becoming the best version of himself and all the things. And so, I'm talking to my son, and my son's like, well, mommy, how do people do that, that don't have that don't have health, or that are missing limbs, or like, can they also do what daddy does? And I'm like, absolutely. And I started showing him about the Olympics and all the things that are there. And I'm like, sweetie, the world is your pickle. You could do whatever it is that you want to do. You can be whoever you want to be, as long as you do it with
Yeah, I love
intention.
that.
And so, he's like, it was career day, and his like wheels are
Oh, love.
turning,
Yeah,
and he
great.
comes home and he's like, I want to be a rock and roll. I want to do, I want to be an engineer and build things, and, that help people. And I was like, great, you can do all of that. I know lawyers that are in a rock band, and I know, like, you could do
Hmm.
everything, anything that you want to do,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can do, right? And so
yeah,
I want people to like find hope in the hopelessness, right? And so life is all about perspective here, and you have to tap into your community. Like, your community
yeah, yeah.
is
Yeah,
we
and Etta,
lost that.
I wanna hone in on this because it's so critical. Like, first of all, I do triathlons too, so good luck to your husband. It's like the greatest. It's like the greatest. Like, you feel like you're a champion just because you're in a pool. It's great, you know? It's awesome. I mean, even if you come last, it's like you did it. You're a champion for your
That's
own self.
exactly what he said. He's like, I'm just trying to finish.
I'm just trying to finish. Right, right. So that's awesome. So, one thing I want to kind of bring light to is what you said about conversing with your 7-year-old, because people don't realize you have to tap into what your son is feeling. You have to tap into yourself, what your son has as an adult, because what a child has at that age is literally, basically, to quote the title of your conference, is limitless, because he came home and he's like, I can be this and I can be that. So what messages is he going to receive in 5 years and 6 years and 10 years that will slowly start chipping away at that? And I'm sure he came back with so much joy and like brimming with energy. And it's like your job to maintain that and to keep that and to nurture that, right? As a parent. And many people like forget that is that if you feel that way at every point in your life, it's so different because whatever situation you're in, you're like, wait a minute, like I want to accomplish this and I have to do A, B, and C. And so now I'm going to take these steps. And who says we can't? And, there are no rules. Rules are made by people who are constricted anyways. So you just have to be able to dream. And that includes like for lawyers and anyone in the legal team, like I get this with lawyers all the time. Like I will come across clients that need help in a certain area of the law, and then I know somebody who's would be perfect. And I would give it to them and they would be like, "Well, I don't really specialize that in that." But it's like, "No, but you can really figure out how to specialize that in like a week." You know what I mean? Like this person really needs help. Like you go to the right resources, you can learn a lot of stuff, you file filing documents, but that can cripple you. Those like barriers and those self-limiting beliefs on yourself and what you can do can really, really limit you on how you can help and how you can transform. And I think, especially for people in the legal world that are wanting to pivot and wanting to see how they can have more impact beyond just what they see in front of them is very critical. Something I always say is like I was having this discussion in another interview and we were talking about legislations and I felt like, like lawyers are to follow the law, argue the law, and they also got to write the law because we to solve problems, we want to come at it from all different angles. We want to come at it from all
Mm.
different angles and change rules for people. So all of that is because you feel like it's possible. That's it. You
Yeah.
have to decide it's possible.
That actually reminded me of a quote that the Legal Talk Network, when I was with them, I did a podcast with them talking about the future of the paralegal role and what that can look like. And so he quoted, or whatever, the team, puts out quotes every time you're on their podcast. And one of the ones that they quoted me was, even the Constitution has been amended. Like anything can be amended at
Mhm.
this point, right? Like the
That's
heartbeat of
right.
our country has been amended. And
That's right.
so I guess I truly love that
That's a
quote for
great
me.
quote. That is a
And
great
so
quote.
I'm like, it's gonna become our slogan somewhere. In one of
Yeah,
my projects, it'll become my slogan because I
100%.
honestly, I honestly said it with it like I like everything I do, right? With my heart. Like he's like, well, do you think this will actually happen? And I was like, dude, like we've been amending the Constitution. We've, like the Supreme
Yeah,
Court keeps like reversing and doing all the things
yeah,
like everything can be possible, right?
for
With
sure.
the right push and the right arguments and the right
Right.
positions and like persistence, right? Consistency and persistence.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
is one thing
agreed.
that I've realized creates results.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like defining the narrative. Who holds the mic? That's key.
Yeah.
Who's got the
Yeah.
mic? Like, that makes a big difference. So if you don't have the mic, grab the mic so you can
Yeah.
change people's opinions. And then third is literally consistency. It's like again, 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 again. We got to keep knocking on the door. We got to keep knocking on the door. And, at some point it does become some of the issues are moral issues. Some of them you're like, how can you not see what we're seeing, right? It
Mm.
can become very significant like that. And you'll see sometimes we can go into this discussion about rules and regulations and certain laws, like some of them just don't make sense. You're like, that's unfair. That's just who made this up, right? Sometimes you read stuff and you're like, when was this written? And then you realize people just have not taken the time to be like, you think we should change that now? Like, I think that's outdated. And you'll
Mm.
see people will go to outdated stuff to
Mm.
be able to do things that you're like, what?
Yeah,
So it's very
absolutely.
important to make sure that the law reflects the morality of the and the values of the society. Very
Right.
important.
Because as society
Yeah.
grows, we need to grow, right? And our laws need to grow. And that's
Yeah.
unfortunately doesn't happen, right? Until somebody actually makes it happen. And, I remember here in Florida many moons ago when the cell phone first came out, we didn't have any laws about you cannot be on the cell phone when driving. Like it just came out, right? Like nobody had those things, but yet it was causing more and more accidents,
Accidents.
more than normal. And so I guess somebody said, hey, we should really like
Right.
add some laws here, right? And so all of
Right.
a sudden it happens. Another thing was our education system is a little different in Florida because they continuously start tweaking it and upgrading it and changing it. And, the teachers, everybody gets frustrated, but they're just trying to figure out because Florida is so diverse. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
can literally go to South Florida and it's a whole different country, right? Versus
Mm.
like the Panhandle, it's what we call original Florida. It's like when
Mm-hmm.
Florida originated, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
we're a very different society in Florida because there's so many people from other countries coming to
Mm-hmm.
establish
Yeah.
their careers and
Yeah.
their lives here. So it's very difficult to get it right. And often Florida is misunderstood because they don't understand the culture, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
what one person may deem okay, the other one's like, no, not okay, right? And we all live in the same state, but it's a whole different ball game depending on where
Yeah.
you're at, what part of Florida you're at.
Yeah.
And so, society can differ within miles, so it's not just about the community around you, it's the community around that community. I know New York is very similar. My mom grew up in New York. They have little bureaus. Before it was like,
Yeah.
this is Italian territory, this is Jewish territory, this is, so on and so forth. And so my mom grew up with that, right? Oh, no, we're passing the Italian portion. We're,
Mm.
because she had to walk to school at 7.
Yeah.
And so it's very different. Our country is very different. And so to get it right is impossible at this point, right? Because there's no way that you're going to get it right for everyone, but you have to get it
No.
right for the majority, right?
Yeah, and you have to, and but you have to want to have a desire to do that, and I think you also have to see like common points of values across different communities. So I'll give you an
Yes.
example. I get asked to consult with a lot of organizations and work on legislation, and this one worked or legislation I worked on with the Muslim Civic Coalition as their director of advocacy and policy, and we worked on a legislation, and there were many like this, but one was the Inclusive Athletic Attire Act, because what
Mm,
we saw were a lot of students that wanted to play sports, but they couldn't because of the volleyball shorts, because of
mm,
the tank tops, or because they wanted more modest clothing, or they wore a hijab, which is a veil. They wanted to wear leggings under their shorts. They would not play sports for years. They went through high school and middle school having a passion for basketball and volleyball, never able to play. And so
mm,
my team and I drafted a legislation that specifically said, like, you will be allowed to play, and nobody can take that away from you. And you're allowed to wear the hijab. You're allowed to have leggings under your shorts and all this stuff. And I spoke to the Catholics, and they were like, "Yes." I spoke to like Orthodox Jews, and they're like, "Absolutely." Then I spoke to young girls who were like sick of like these teenage years is a very critical age, and no one wants to be wearing clothes that make them feel uncomfortable. And it's about the
mm.
talent and the skill and not what you're wearing. So we passed in Illinois. We were the first state to pass it in Illinois, and now all these kids get to play sports that we're not able to. And then, yeah, and then it's being replicated across the country. Like literally, they're copy and pasting the language we drafted. So that
Awesome.
just shows you, though, that so many people are there, and people don't realize, okay, is it just about sports? It's more than just about sports, because you have to think about it this way. You think about a 12-year-old girl who grew up watching basketball with her parents, playing basketball on the court with dad and mom, and having this love and going to games with the family, and she has the skill, and she gets to middle school, and there's tryouts, and then all the girls are like signing up and all this stuff, and it's not for her. It's not for her. So at that moment, right at that moment, she has received the message. You're kind of an outsider, right?
Yeah.
Because school spirit, team, etc., it's all a sense of belonging. You're an outsider. And so a very simple rule change that could be like, wait a minute, how does wearing a hijab stop her from being a better basketball player? Like the fact that she wants to wear leggings because it's part of her faith, but she's an excellent hooper. Like, well, how does that stop her, right? And so
Mm,
having those conversations and realizing that the messages that we're sending children at such a young age Like, we need to think about policies and laws that can uplift them and make them feel a part of something, because once you start there, it changes the way you see the world and see yourself. Because I think when you're in school, especially in public schools, it's the first time and maybe the last time you will hang out with people that are not like you, right? In your
Mm.
classrooms, in the cafeterias. So you want to be able to be part of this world and feel like you are equal and you are belonging. And you also want to see other people equal to you. Forget about just wanting to feel belonging. Like, you want to feel that for other people. So I think it's very critical to get these types of laws really, really good and right when we're talking about schools, because I think schools and families, like, you have to be able to deliver that message early. Once you
Oh,
deliver that message
absolutely.
that they're an outsider, it that outsider message will be with them for the rest of their life. And who decides that, by the way? Just someone who never revisited the code and been like, oh yeah, yeah, maybe we should do that. I mean, people ask me about this specific legislation, and there is obstacles and people against it. In Illinois, not a single person was. Zero. Because the way you tell the story resonated with the legislators that were listening to it, because they had kids. They understood how that would feel. And so, it was like, oh my God, like, they're bringing, you have like crazy rhetoric. You're
Yes.
bringing Sharia people coming into our courts. Like, you can have that language, or you can have a really educated, human, nuanced
Yeah.
conversation, and then you actually start moving forward and start solving problems. So it seems real small, but for that one girl that gets, and maybe she'll get a scholarship running track and get a scholarship from her, and then she'll be a distance runner at a university wearing hijab. We've seen these stories.
Yeah. I mean,
So it's
Nike's did
beautiful.
a
It's beautiful to
great,
see.
Nike has those, for sports and everything. And I
Right.
think
Nike
they were
has
at the
those. Yeah.
forefront for it. Yeah. So,
Yeah, because they
there are
understood.
companies behind the thing, right? And we
Absolutely.
see these debates in the Olympics and the volleyball team that
Yep.
refuse to wear those, or the tennis ones that refuse to wear the skirts. And
Yeah.
there is change, right?
Yeah.
And people with a voice are moving it and moving the needle. So that's what really I want people to take from this conversation is there are
Yeah.
people out there, Maria included, that are working on it. They're building
Mhm.
this and you just have to look for it. You just have to search it, and there are a lot of voices out there that are supporting this. I am included, myself included. My first language was Spanish. So when I went
Mhm.
to school, my English, not very good looking. I had the
Mhm.
thickest accent. It was the
Mhm.
worst thing. Everybody was making fun of me because I rolled my R's and, did all the things. And so, my father being multilingual, at that point, he knew about 5 or 6 languages. And, he understood the struggle. And so that's why he learned languages because he wanted people to feel comfortable in his presence
Mhm.
and, feel
Yeah.
understood and heard, right? And so I didn't have that, I guess, that into that mindset. I went into school, people were making quote unquote fun of me or were missaying my name, and this was like a harsh reality at the age of 5, right? Like all
Yeah.
this was happening and I was only 5 years old. And
Yeah.
in my world, in my community, we didn't do that. I had friends from all over. I grew up in Miami. It's the melting pot of every single culture you could possibly think about. My friends were literally from all over. They were all bilingual, if not trilingual.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have that. So when I went to school, it was like a social experiment gone really bad. I felt like a rat being tested and
Mhm.
with no remorse. And I came home destroyed. Like I didn't know what to do.
Mhm.
Like I didn't want to speak Spanish anymore. Like I was so destroyed. And thankfully, my parents were very in tune with that and understood that because they themselves went through it, when
Yeah.
they left Puerto Rico and came. And so all of a sudden they said, sweetie, this is normal. It's going to happen. You're going to find people in your path that are not going to understand you, that don't know the value in knowing another language or practicing another culture or knowing the things that you know. And that's unfortunate for them, but it has nothing to do with you. And so,
100%.
the fact that you want to demolish yourself or, dim your light
Yeah,
so that you can quote unquote fit in is not, no, 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 sweetie. You need to let them
not
know that
necessary.
this,
No, excellent
and
advice.
so,
Excellent advice. And
I mean, I became the
it's
hothead,
also the world. It's also
Yeah.
the world. Like, you are stripping away the opportunity for other children to experience people from different countries and different languages, and different accents are really, really beautiful, actually. It's really, really
Yes.
cool,
I
to
love
see
it.
how different. I mean, that's the
I
best
love
part about
it.
traveling.
Right? That's what I say. I'm like, that's the
Yeah.
only reason I travel because I want to go and explore
Yeah.
and live other people's culture. Like, I think one of
Yes.
my favorites is Italy. Like, I love their lifestyle. I love how they, buy their
Yeah.
foods daily in a fresh market on the street. Like, that style for
Love it.
me is so like intriguing and mesmerizing.
Yeah.
And so, I
Yeah.
want that for my kids as well. So we are going to start traveling a little more overseas later on when they get a little older, so that they can
Yeah.
truly appreciate it, because right now they're little, they're just going to
Absolutely.
see like these buildings or whatever, but they're not really going to
Hmm.
appreciate, the meaning and everything behind it quite yet. But yeah, it was amazing. I could literally talk to you all day because we can literally talk about anything at this point.
Anything. Anything.
This-
Absolutely. Absolutely.
oh my gosh, it was
I
a
know.
pleasure. I'm gonna have to
I mean,
have
I
you on for
think,
like a part two or something.
yeah, no, no, definitely sign me up. Sign me up. 100%. And then we can go country by country and figure out like what we love about each country, and where to eat the best food and where to take the
Oh,
kids. And
oh my
yeah,
goodness,
I
yes.
travel a lot with the kids.
I love
It's like
it.
second nature for them. It's the best gift you can give.
Yes, for sure. So I think the furthest we've been with them has been our homeland, Puerto Rico, our island, and
Hmm.
we're
Hmm.
eventually going to take them, little by little, we'll take them to other countries
Yeah.
where we feel, confident that they'll appreciate
Yeah.
the culture and everything. But
Yeah.
yeah, but thank you so much. I
You're very
love everything
welcome.
that you're doing. I'm following you. I'm
No,
looking at
I
everything that
appreciate
you're
you.
doing because it's just it's you're giving hope to the hopeless. You're giving the voice to the voiceless, and I feel like we just need more people like that. Whether you're an attorney or not, this is something that you can do, and I want you guys to understand that if you take anything away from this episode, is that we have a voice, we can use it. We have a platform, if not create one like I did, created multiple. And so understanding that it's okay. You can pave your way, you can build your table, and you can grab the mic, like Maria said.
Yeah, yeah,
And
grab
I
the
love
mic.
it.
And also I like, you and I are one or two of millions and millions of people that are doing work to help other people, and we just need to be able to, when you're going through, this is what I'll say for the audience to close it up. When you're going through your social media feeds and what's ever coming into your algorithm, make sure you figure out who you want to listen to and see. I'm very specific about my social media. I'm not really interested in amassing followers. I'm interested in putting intentional stuff out there that's very important for people. And if it feeds you and it feeds your soul and it gives you inspiration, damn, we've got it, right? So just
Hmm.
just be engaged with people that are in the work of doing the work, versus people that just want you to have your eyeballs, you know? That's the
Yes.
biggest distraction right now that gets in the way of being people of impact.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time on our platform, talking about intentional collaborations and partnerships. We
Yeah.
get, and I'm sure you do too, millions of
Mm-hmm.
inquiries of companies and tech
Yeah.
companies trying to collaborate. But if they don't come with true intentions or something that's really going to move the needle or, support our mission and vision, we're not here for the referrals. We're not here for the
Right.
percentage, for that then I would literally be lighting a match and setting my whole brand on fire. So we're not doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah. Who
guys,
needs
we
that? Who
love
needs
you.
that?
I love you guys. Thank you so much. I want to take two
Thank you.
minutes from this episode because it kind of ties the episode in together. But thank you so much, guys. You've been with me for 4 years. I do see you, I hear you, and I appreciate you. And we're not going anywhere. So I thank you so much. Until next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.